Hello, this is Malorian, and this is going to be another Orc Tactical team, and what we're going to be talking about today is the dangers of DPS thinking. Now, what DPS is for those that play, World of Warcraft and all that stuff, it's all damage per second. And in the computer gaming community, basically what you're looking at there is people trying to design characters that can pump out the most damage per second. So that if they have a team of guys, they got one guy that can be the tank, and of course they got the one guy that's the DPS that's going to be going in for the kill. And the big thing there is it's all about trying to maximize the most amount of damage your guy can do per second. So bam, 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 dead. Now, when you bring this into tabletop wargaming, you actually see a lot of this in 40K, and that's because it's very simple. You can say, all right, I really need the tank punch. I can get missile launchers or meltas and this and this and this unit, and basically when I'm looking at it, I can get in the most number of these high shots for this cost, or with this unit is better because I get this number of attacks for this number of points, or things like this. And so it's very easy in that case to try and just look at and say, okay, this unit is better than that. This is the one that gives you the greatest damage output, the greatest DPS. Now, when you bring this over to fantasy, though, this isn't as clear cut, but unfortunately a lot of people still have this thinking. And the reason why it's not still clear cut is the fact that it's not just really just sitting there shooting or anything like that. There's a lot more aspects to fantasy that can't just be placed down and shoot, really. Of course, in some cases there are, but for the vast majority of the time, it's just not that simple. I can go and take my big unit of Savage Orc Biggins, boom, place it down, but I have no guarantee of having any effectiveness from them. It's not like having a unit of Long Fangs off on a hill where I know, boom, they're placed, they're going to shoot this amount of times, I should do this amount of damage unless my opponent goes and dedicates something to them. This is what I should get out of them. With the Savage Orcs, there's a lot more that can come into it depending on how the terrain is or what my opponent does with them. But unfortunately, what you're going to see with some fantasy players is that they really get stuck into that DPS thinking. And what they'll really do is look at from book to book to book, from unit to unit to unit, and basically trying to say, which is the unit that gives me the greatest killing power. They'll basically just lie out all the units, say, okay, this one is giving me this many wounds per point, this one's doing this, okay, which one's the highest? This one? Boom, I'm going to just max up my army with this. And for some examples, some of the armies you might see doing this is Warriors of Chaos, because as far as fantasy goes, the Marauders with the great weapons, Market Corn, that is your greatest DPS in fantasy. You can't beat that. I mean, two strength 5 attacks for like 5 points? Come on, I mean, it's just, you can't beat that. So you'll see guys that have gone and converted these all up, and they might have a bajillion units of them. But then all of a sudden when they go to play, they might not have everything that they need. And this is where we get into the dangers. Now, of course, they'll have the advantage that when they actually get to combat, they're going to be going and doing better. But like I said before, all of a sudden there's all these different aspects that come into it. They're not thinking about terrain that can be throwing things off. I mean, all of a sudden if there's a river or something, or if they're large impassable pieces of terrain that can really affecting things. Your opponent has the ability to go and concentrate on one area, depending on what the mission is. Say if it's the Watchtower, or if it's Blood and Glory, your opponent can go for that, and the whole DPS thing is completely wasted. And so really, when it comes to making an army, what I'm basically getting to is that trying to figure out what units and what combinations can kill the most is a good thing to have, but at the same time you need to have all those tactical other aspects in there. You're going to need your one in there for what if it's a Watchtower. Make sure that I have just defensive units. I mean, I could have a unit that's 50 slaves. I'm not taking the 50 slaves because they can kill this many models per point. I'm taking them so that they can bog you down. I'm taking them to try and waste some of your points, because if I can spend 100 of my points to lock down 500 of yours for the entire game, that means that I'm now going to have, all the rest of mine to be fighting a smaller portion of yours. You know, if you took all these big blocks, but I took a lot of single trolls or fast calves, so I can be slowing things down, bogging them down, making sure that I'm controlling the movement phase. All of a sudden, I can be taking advantage of this and, you know, slowing down one flank while I crush the other. You know, there's just so much more to it. So that's where I'm getting to. DPS is great in things like video games or even in 40k, but in fantasy, I would highly suggest that you make your list a little bit more balanced and try and think of more things other than just how much damage I can do per second. So there you have it. Thanks for watching. Bye.